Yeah, and it's such a big button. Such a big...
All right, take two. Season 2, Vegas Around Town. It's going to be the show where we're talking to the coolest peeps in Vegas. And Stu's one of the coolest guys I know. He is my business partner at Creative Collective Media. It is a video production company that we started in 2018. So it's been almost 4 years.
Sure. 10
years before that, we were working at a post-production facility in Burbank, California, around 2008, 2009. And we were doing that in that industry. Stu was also, during that time, he jumped into the crypto space. So he's an early adapter in the cryptocurrency world. He started a finance channel or a YouTube channel called Financed Opinion. And over the past few years, I've convinced him to move to Vegas. So he moved to Vegas. He bought a home in Vegas, and eventually he became a landlord. So as of a couple months ago, you own your first investment property.
Yes, as a couple of months ago, own it. It will be rented as of when, I don't know when this comes out, but it'll be this Monday coming.
Oh, there you go.
The first renter should be in there, hopefully. Fingers still crossed. You don't, until you get the money in the bank, don't, I'm not going to celebrate. But yeah, that will be, exactly.
Good job.
It all happens so fast. Yeah, it's good. It's nice to get that kind of over with, to be honest.
We'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's jump into sort of like the beginning and give people a little bit of context to Stuart and me and you and sort of this whole thing and how it came about. So flashback to 2008 in Los Angeles, California, Burbank, California. We're working at a post-production house. How did that all come about? What were you doing at that time? How did you get into the industry of production, video production, all that stuff? And I know that you were born into it, but tell the viewers sort of your background in the industry.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been in that industry forever. My family all started a bunch of companies back then in the 80s or something when I was a child. And I've just kind of been around it for a long time. I did jump ship from California to the United States. I lived in Australia for 11 years. So before that, I just had a huge stint where I was out of the country and didn't really have any involvement. But then I had an opportunity to kind of come back. The grass is always greener. And I came back, and it's just kind of nepotism is what that world really feeds off of. It's who you know, not really what you know, honestly, in that industry. Are you talking
about Australia?
No, moving to post and coming into LA. Just movies, right?
Yeah.
Hollywood, all that sort of stuff. Everyone wants to be in it. It's good money. Whether you're on the post-production side or the actor side, you want to, you got to know people. And so I would say networking, if you want to get into it, definitely is the big thing there, because I've seen plenty of people come through who didn't know squat about anything, and they got a pretty decent job. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. It is legitimately nepotism. So I kind of got in because of people I knew. And then worked there you were there for 10 years. I was there for 9 to 10 years, something like that, like a year after you came in. Mm-hmm. And we helped grow the facility from a very small size. I mean, at the time when I jumped on, it was I knew it from younger. It was that company was actually much smaller. I remember when it was 5 employees, but then at the time when you jumped in, it was 20?
When I jumped in was 2008, and it was chaos, right? You guys had just hired video people. You literally were, I think you guys were just audio for a long time.
For a very long time, for years.
We had our buddy Teddy there and just a couple of guys, Colin, Alan, all the old school audio guys
still there.
Were there.
Some of them are still there.
Yeah, they're still there, which is great. But I got a call from our friend Steve Guillen, who was a video editor at the time.
Silky.
I had worked with him at another spot a couple blocks away. And I had been in the industry for about 4 years before, just kind of finding work, just taking.
Which is an interesting story. We're gonna have to swap seats one day and have you on this side.
I'll tell you that, for sure.
Because you got a whole tangent there that I think you're interesting jump to getting into it too. But
yeah, I mean, I got in literally through a referral. Again, Steve was we're hiring an online editor. Online editor is someone who finishes. So they brand, they package, they put all the audio together and all that stuff. So I got in there, and then you were working there at the time. I think you had just moved back from Australia.
I just moved back. You were already there. And I remember being introduced. This is Rob and Steve, our editors. And at the time, again, because I I knew the company before you guys had showed up. And so I was new to the whole video thing in that side of the world anyway. So it was interesting. And so that was kind of like a whole new step and process, I think, for everybody. And it was very interesting because that was like some ground level stuff. It was really the beginning when everyone was wandering around not knowing what they were doing. And again, we took that to a really big place from where we started.
Well, we started converting over, the industry had come from standard definition squared TV, low definition television to HD. Like I think our facility was one of the groundbreakers to convert to that.
And in the transition into digital.
And HD was like at 720 at the time. You know, that was considered HD.
TVs were still, buying 1080 TVs so was like a new thing.
We actually went through two transitions in that industry, which was conversion from low TV to high definition and then to streaming. Like that, that became sort of our
and
last
that's where it is now. That's the majority of where the work is right now.
So it was very much a niche business. And I think we learned a lot. We had pretty much made lifelong friends, and it kind of ran its stint. And we both sort of left, did our own thing. I mean, you and I lived together for a little bit, and then you're like, I'm going to Europe somewhere. I think you went to Europe or something. And then I went to Koreatown or something in LA, and I lived in LA. And I finally left. I was like, I can't stand LA. I moved to Vegas. I took a year off, started making art, and then I started meeting these I ended up doing a TV show, again, from a referral to Jerry. Jerry referred me. Jerry, who used to be our Final Cut manager, was shooting a TV show in San Diego, and they were expanding to Las Vegas, and they wanted to, they were shooting top producing realtors at the time and mortgage professionals. So that's how I got hooked. I got literally thrown into that. I never did that. I just picked up a camera and just started shooting, and you know, I have background in editing, but that's how we started the company, the Creative Collective Media Company. Yeah. Because literally on my second job, it was probably my second job, I was like, dude, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing here. I call Stu. He was living in, where were you living at?
Torrance down by the beach in California.
And then kind of talk about what happened there.
Yeah, I just got a call at the time. I was doing project management for some rich millionaire who has a couple properties out in Malibu, which was an interesting tangent. But I get a call from Rob saying, yo, what's up, man? I got a camera and I'm running around shooting, filming people. You want to come out and make a few extra bucks? And
I don't know what I'm doing.
See what's up. Yeah. So I thought about it and I was like, yeah, sure. It was kind of annoying because at the time I was driving from Torrance all the way to Malibu every day. And if anyone knows that distance, especially through LA traffic,
it's like past 50, like he was driving 50 miles, maybe 100 miles a day, right?
Yeah, per day. Well, yeah, per day. Yeah. And then I got to the point where I was trying not to do that too much, but it was like having to go all the way from the Malibu, sometimes taking the 405. I mean, we're talking hours. Yeah, it was absolute madness. And I don't necessarily, I mean, anyone who knows anything about LA, like that's the thing we always talk about is the traffic. It's real. It's seriously real. So I was already frustrated at the time. And that was a very easy, you know, because I didn't know much and I kind of was trying to get into what I was doing more, project management and property development. But again, Rob just kind of was like, yo, dude, you want to just make some extra money, see what's up, come out here. And I was like, yeah, I could take a break. I'm over this for a minute and I'll see what's up. And so, I mean, I guess the rest is history, but yeah, I just flew over. We did our job. We worked on it. We kind of did a crash course in the night and worked together on it. And next thing you know, it was like I was doing another gig like a week later.
Well, yeah,
a couple weeks later.
Like we weren't really a company until you started because you know all that stuff. You handled all the business, the finance, and you literally, I mean, you started the company. I just formed it.
I didn't start it necessarily. You did start it, but I will say that we together put it together to package it more as a company instead of just a couple of guys running around. Yeah, that was sort of like a goal we went together with, and I think anyone you talk to who's running a business and very successful at it. And I just was at a meeting with a bunch of realtors who were talking about it. And that's what they'll say is you need to kind of work and leverage people around you and work together to build something bigger and build your brand bigger than being just you individually running around. And I think you realized that early on. And then I jumped on board. And then helped take it to another level. And we just kind of have since then just continued to run down that process. So,
well, I'll give Stu credit here. Like for anytime I've had a creative project and I can't figure anything out, like Stu's like my guy to call. So it's like we've worked together in the past few years. Well, we've worked together in the past, and it's always been that like, hey, my Avid's broken, my computer's broken. Can you fix it?
Yeah, you were used to going to me for problems.
I got a fashion show I'm about to throw. I don't know how to build a ramp. Can you build a ramp?
Yeah, making that ramp. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So it's like the secret to sort of my creative genius. This guy, you know, like most of the stuff, I basically just take Stu's ideas and he makes it. Well, I have the idea and Stu makes it happen. Sort of that's the secret to the sauce there. And that's the same. That's basically what happened in the company. You know, I started off kind of having a community or a job, and we figured it out. You know, like how do we figure this out? Like how do we make a business model out of all this stuff, and how do we make a little bit of money? You know, we weren't making a lot of money, but how do we do that? So I don't even know where I'm going with this, but my point was
growing it into something sustainable. And at this point it is, and it's gone through little iterations. It's changed kind of the business model that it is, and potentially into the future, it will change again. I mean, as it is right now, we're doing a lot of stuff with YouTube. We're doing a lot of social media stuff, more marketing related. I mean, it's always been marketing related, but it really is driving more down on that marketing side of it. And we're finding is people don't necessarily even need the content made as beautifully as they originally thought they did. It's more about just massive amounts of content, and they need it, and they need it posted and all that sort of stuff. So we're finding we're growing, and I think if you're not growing as a company, you're dying. But we're trying to sort of navigate the waters as can be. At the same time, natural entrepreneurial spirit from both of us. So we have our own YouTube channels. We're constantly looking at ideas to make more money. We're constantly striving for more and better things all throughout. So it's just, I feel like not necessarily a stepping stone, but it's just one of those things that we've put together, and we'll continue on, and whatever the future has, we're not really sure, but I'm excited for it.
The challenge too is like finding like people to come on board that aren't doing their own thing.
For sure. That's definitely one of the big steps. That's one of the big steps. And I think that, again, I just heard some really, you know, big players in the real estate industry talking exactly about this, that managing people and getting those people to help fill in the gaps and different ways how to deal with it. Like, it's a really tough challenge, and that's a really big place in your business, and doing that is the next step. It's definitely something, because, you know, you do think about no matter what it is that you're really good at, there's going to be parts that you're not good at. So whether I'm good at this part and Rob's good over there and vice versa, there's parts that you need to leverage on someone else. And we kind of found a groove with amongst us, but we also have a drive and a spirit there. And just finding somebody who's also driven, who wants to make money and who wants to grow with you, and at the same time fills in those gaps on things you don't want to do. Yeah, it's challenging for sure. Not to mention managing just personal.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Bill Gaylord would always say, like, you can't have like 20 quarterbacks on a team. You know, it's like somebody's got to, I don't even know what the football term is, the receiver, whoever catches the ball, the guy that catches the ball.
Catcher,
the catcher. The catcher.
Yeah, big sports fans here.
Exactly. For us, like, I'm a little bit more stronger with sales and marketing and like doing the content, but you're very good at the technical aspect. I mean, you can do both, you know, and I can kind of do both, but we kind of know where we fall short, you know, like you'll come to me with some creative ideas. Like,
Rob, can you help me out? Yeah, exactly. And vice versa. As far as continuing with growth and managing yourself is into the future, I think that the next step for us is, again, where the company goes is, again, we've started looking at YouTube personally. We're starting to grow that. I'm personally heavily vested into crypto. I'm looking to diversify into getting new properties, and, you know, I just got that condo. I think we mentioned it on this take of starting this podcast, but just got that condo. You just bought a house too. So it's like moving on into the future. And again, like I said, constantly just trying to develop your skills and become better in different avenues is an interesting thing that we should all strive to be.
Well, let's talk about that, since, you know, we've talked about LA. Let's get back to, okay, you're in Vegas, and you made the jump here. You moved your house. You were renting first, and so talk about that stint, right? Like from renting to potentially just getting your own home, and then now you're a landlord. Well, so what was the mindset like, or what were you thinking during that time?
Well, renting's stupid. It always has been stupid, and that's the way I've looked at it forever. It's just not attainable in LA. at the price point. I mean, unless I was making the same money I was making 10 years ago, it's just not attainable into the future. And I wasn't smart enough back then to do it. And so be it. You learn, you live and you learn.
What were you paying rent here? And how big was your house? What were you renting? Like,
yeah, big difference from what I had
compared
there.
to LA.
The last place I lived at when I was there was a small little, I don't even remember how big it was. I think it was like 800 square feet. No, it had to have been like 1,200 or 1,400. It wasn't, no, it was kind of small.
2-bedroom.
Yeah, it was only a 2-bedroom. It was kind of small. I don't really remember. Maybe it was 1,000. That sounds about right. And it was about 1,000 square feet. And again, in a complex, massive complex, got people above us to the side, roaches outside the front door. It was, fantastic in the usual way. It was down from the beach, which I will say, but that thing was expensive. It was like $2,200 or $2,000 a month or something like that.
For like 800 square feet.
800 to 1,000 square feet.
Yeah,
and then when, started visiting out here for doing work, it was like the jump to getting a full blown 2,000 square foot house for, I think when we first moved here, I think it was $1,500. Which was huge, which was a big jump. So I was renting. It was
2
the same
floors,
thing.
right? Yeah,
it was 2 floors at the time, and there was like a little backyard. It wasn't huge, and obviously Vegas has its downsides of differences from LA. Like the humidity is a big one to begin with, but making that jump started to grow on me as all the little things start to dawn on you as you're driving around. You kept asking me like, when are you gonna move out here? Never gonna happen was the first answer. Then it was like, it's not too bad. Then we'd hang out. We'd eat some Robertos, get some tacos, chill. I would drive around going on these shoots, and started to realize it really wasn't that bad here, in a sense that it was really nice that you could get around casually. The food, the amenities were all what you expected and wanted, and you didn't have the hassle of like living in LA that was living in LA. So that's the same old spiel you're gonna hear from anyone from LA. And so just decided to pull the trigger out here. Wasn't really even thinking about buying a house at the time. Honestly, it really was just like, well, can I cut down costs? Again, we started the business, we've gone a little heavier into it. It was like, this will help grow that because more can be thrown into it. And this would make it easier, and it'll be a little more comfortable. At the time my girlfriend was with me, and we had a little dog, and it was just like a little bit more space for us. And again, started to find that, you could go hiking here, and just again, everything just starts to become bigger. It's more opportunity as far as growth and movement around, where LA, it's just so confining. Driving from one side to the other, you have to plan your day out, which is a really dumb thing in my eyes. Nowadays, I just like, oh, it's lunch, I'm going to go get some lunch. Before, if it was like a certain time, you remember that? Yeah. You couldn't make that decision, right? So it wasn't much more than just kind of like, I need a break from that nonsense was the decision to come out here. Buying a house didn't really come till later, and it really was through the advice and guidance of Bill. Huge and forever grateful to Bill, really, who was the guy who made that happen. I think for both of us, Bill has been a fantastic person in our lives, as far as he's a good friend. He's been a mentor. He's a really special guy. And so through his guidance and input, it was just like, well, maybe this is attainable. And I think, again, he, through his help, was able to make it more attainable every day until eventually it came into fruition, right?
Yeah.
And we're in a really hot market. As of making this, like, it's really still kind of crazy as far as buying houses. But the same way I started this was rent stupid. Paying rent was dumb, and that wasn't something I wanted to do anymore. So I was ready to do it. A lot of things kind of aligned in my life as far as some funds to make it happen. And I think you honestly got to take the universe for the signs when it shows them to you. Things were aligning as far as enough money for a down payment to put towards it. Changes were all happening in my life on a very heavy nature. And so it was like, well, maybe this is the opportunity to actually make it happen. Looked at the numbers, went through it, and it made sense. But at the same time, because the universe was pushing it in so much of a fast direction, and I already expressed interest into getting that, I'd reached out to you about continuing to roll that boat of investing. And I know you were like, oh, you're getting a house. This is exciting. And we had a friend that was also interested in, investing and getting into that next stage. And so that's what really just allowed it to jump. I bought the house, and then the condo couldn't have been more than like 3 months was really the conversation was being started after that. We had the conversation in my house.
Yeah, I think you bought your condo
I think
like a month before
unpacked.
I bought my house. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I bought it several months before you bought your house.
That's what I'm saying. The condo.
Before I bought the condo. Yeah. It wasn't very long before we kind of got the whole idea. I don't, time for me is all relative. So I don't really pay attention. I don't remember, but
let's going back to sort of like the efficiency of Vegas. That's kind of the appeal for me. It's like, you just get your time back. You get a lot of time back, and you're not worrying about sort of, the time that you're spending trying to work around certain aspects like traffic and like just things that
just
you're
getting
trying
things
to
accomplished,
yeah,
simple things, shopping, laundry,
simple,
going to a laundromat or something like that. Like, again, because as a renter, it had a laundry, I had to do it, and you had to share it with this huge apartment complex. Was a stupid little thing. It's like, you don't have to anymore.
Same with me in LA.
Yeah.
I would drive like 20 minutes to find parking in Koreatown. So that was kind of annoying. I think Vegas is definitely one of those cities where it's a sleeper city because you don't realize you like it until you're in it for a while. And then you're like, oh, you're starting to like the things around you in your house. And you're like, oh, it's because I have all this time. You realize I have more time to myself instead of like workarounds, like there's a lot of workarounds in Los Angeles, and not to really poop on the city, but I feel like it's a young man's game or young woman's game. Like when you're little. Of course,
you gotta want it.
Yeah, you gotta.
Everybody who's there, I've realized, wanted it more than I did. That was the reality. It was just like looking around, and it's like, you clearly all want this more than I did. Yeah. And I just have no business for it. And I did try somewhere. Like I tried when I left I decided to leave LA altogether. Yeah. I didn't even think about this before. I even started with CCM and Rob moved to Vegas. I decided to go to London, and which is more expensive, but I was just over the game of LA. Yeah. I decided actually to go on a journey around Europe and travel, and then eventually kind of fell in love with London because I don't know, I just kind of liked it. Long term, probably wouldn't have worked out. It is overcast. I do really like the sun, but it was just like, there was people in LA that want it more, and you got to want it. It really is, because it's buzzing. And I went back recently, and some things are the same. A lot of things have changed, but it's just intense. I feel like as soon as I get down there and I'm on the 5 on the freeway, and it's jamming. Like you're going like 85 in the slow lane, and everyone's just intense behind you. I got right into it though. I was sitting there road rage. I was like, I'll swear at you. I'll go to town.
This is a lot of stress for sure. It's a lot. It's an exciting city. And I think it's like when you're young and you're in your 20s or something, like it's exciting, it's appealing, but if you want to kind of time travel and get your life back, like it's nice to go a little bit more quiet in the suburbs. You know what was huge though? I have to say to it, I think that's probably why you decided to leave too. Sobriety. Yeah, well, I got exactly.
For me, it was too. It just stopped being as fun if I wasn't like drinking,
going to the bars and stuff like that. Exactly.
Not.
Like I wasn't really I was at home a lot, and I wanted a bigger spot too, right? So Vegas, I had family here and kind of looked around, and I'm like, oh, this is like something I would totally like jump in or get my feet wet living in. So I kind of stayed here and visited for a summer, and I'm like, that's where I got the idea of like, maybe I'll go here. It's the desert. It's hot, but it's almost as hot as California, man. It's not that bad. Plus, if you get a nice little house, you can get a pool,
Yeah. Honestly, the temperature, I really didn't. I mean, it gets hot, and we were in the valley. We were in the valley too, which is that side of the hill. So it's a little bit warmer than say the coast side of LA. It was dumb. I mean, for a long time when we were doing posts and stuff, it gets dumb hot there, like 120, 130. 110, I mean, it's like, I remember days where you could like fry an egg on a car. It's like, okay, Vegas isn't that bad, but you got AC everywhere. And I keep telling people when you move out here, you go from car to building with AC to, there's plenty of amenities that are covered and encapsulated. So maybe not quite as many days at the park, but definitely works. It's definitely a lifestyle that I think works for a lot of us. So.
We'll talk a little bit about the investing, the property. What's the next sort of step now? You've got your condo, and kind of where's the next, where's Stuart going now?
Well, I mean, probably more in the future. I mean, the way you look at it is you do what's called, just even a simple way to look at it is doing what's called the Burr method. Buy, renovate, rent, repeat, something like that, I think is what it stands for.
I heard that recently.
Yeah. And it's I didn't really know it at the time. I didn't realize that was the end goal, but I was just like, I want to get invested and start making some side money, because for me, it's passive income, right? Yeah. It's really about making money that's going to allow you to do what you want every day without having to necessarily go and work for it. And here's the thing, for people like you and I, working isn't something we're not ever going to do, but we consider work like a slightly different thing for us. It's like we're very active, and we're very highly driven. So just sitting still is never going to be an option, but I don't necessarily want to go have to do the same exact thing every day long term, right? I would love to wake up knowing that food, water, housing is taken care of, and I could really explore the depths of what I want to as far as my creativity or whatever. Not what you need for that is passive income. And I started looking at the numbers that you need to get to really get to a reasonable place, and I thought, hey, 6 figures, $100,000 $100,000 would be a nice place to sit. If I was comfortable at $100,000, I could quite honestly be comfortable below that, but 100 would be great if I could get there. What do you need? So you look at a standard 10% return, which is the average over the lifetime of the S&P 500, which is getting into stocks, right? If you look at that, that's been so far 10%. I think it's probably gone up a little bit more just because of this recent sort of bull market we've had with all things getting crazy. But it's been about 10%. And I go, okay, so you need $1 million to make 10% to get your $100,000. And so once I started realizing the math on what I needed to live a year, then I started realizing, well, you have to do it with assets, with investments, property, stocks, things that make you money that are doing it for you while you're sleeping. Because otherwise it's exchanging time for money.
Yep.
And so the properties were the first one, like obviously house, getting rid of your rent and moving into getting that money paid. So you're putting money down into the property. But then, well, why don't you do a second one and have someone else pay your mortgage? So that's where the condo really was like, I was so ready to get into it right off the bat. Not to mention the benefits you get from renting. If you're a landlord for 2 years, you can actually take the extra income that you make from it and apply it to any other refinance or other mortgage you get down the road, which is this is what wealthy people do. This is why they're able to continue living. They live in a different tax bracket life. Like they don't pay taxes or they continue to have generational wealth is because they live like this. They experience life like this. I'm just trying to get to that place to begin with. And, one foot in front of the other. And obviously it takes time, but I'm just still going to take the opportunities when they come. Condo landed. Hopefully it's rented now.
So there you go. Yeah.
So it'll be rented. It'll be through. That again happens to this Monday coming. So fingers crossed. And from there, we just kind of wait for a little bit of money to save up in the bank and then look to do a refi maybe down in the future. Rates are really low right now. We got a killer one on it, to be honest. So it's going to be painful to want to change that if the rates continue
let's
going
go back
up,
to that. Like the what did you learn in the condo process as a first time investor, or like, you flipped the house?
Finding someone to fill it is not as easy as you think.
How long did it go unrented for?
It only went for a month.
Okay.
Maybe less. Actually, it was like 24 days. I think it was on the market.
Yeah.
But Zillow was not necessarily the answer. And so
How did you find this person?
Well, it was actually through MLS. So real estate agent, Felicia Rexford put it, shout out Felicia, absolutely killer. Been huge guidance on that. It was actually through her that we got the condo. She was the lead to it. It was kind of, I wouldn't say a pocket listing, but she was definitely the eyes and the ears on that. She got invested herself, got a number of other people invested in this opportunity. So again, networking and who you know is super key.
Yeah, we're going to have Felicia on here.
Yeah, Felicia would be a killer on this. She's a great personality. And so it was getting inside into it early, but she helped list it on the MLS for us. And that was really it. So you do have to have a referral fee to the agent when they bring them in. So there's going to be a referral fee on that he'll get for bringing someone through, but definitely a lot easier. Well, Zillow was pretty easy, honestly, to get it. It took a little minute to get it up and running, but what it ended up being, which I think a lot of people can relate to, is that the quality of the leads was a little hit or miss. And I think there was
I'm curious to this because I don't know. How many people did you interview? Do you interview them? Is that how you work?
Yes. So the way I quantified it was like, it wasn't really a decent lead until they came and wanted to see it. So they wanted to view the place.
So how many people saw it before
5? You're
like, yes.
5. And I haven't even I don't even know if she's seen it, the one who's supposed to get it now. I assume she went and looked at it with a realtor because that's part of the, like they have instructions on where the key is. They can go check it out. But and
Felicia's showing it?
No, she's not showing it. She doesn't. She just posts it for
another realtor.
Other realtors, will be her representative, and they'll come check it out. And so I assume they went and looked at it, or at least he showed her the one. She seemed to like it. She called me up. It was an email. It was a phone call. I just double checked her, a few things, checking into her credit history and income, whether she can afford it. That for me was the biggest thing. Can you afford the rent? Yeah, it's like kind of looking at about 3 times the rent.
Sure,
it would be great if you can make that, and then just making sure that that's something they're going to be able to do. And then it was good to go, and we're looking to exchange a cashier's check and the keys at the same time. Before they, that's when they're going to actually move in to do that. So I haven't actually met them in person. I assume they've seen it, but before that, it was like 5 people I had to interview or actually show the place to.
Yeah.
Out of maybe 20, 25 that kind of like
20, 25.
Yeah. That reached out through Zillow. I think the problem with Zillow and a lot of those digital services that I think any industry professional can relate to is that the digital side of it makes it so easy that it's just too easy for them to inquire.
Easy to flake too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just like they just click a button to be like, I'm interested. And then you hit them up like, okay, cool. What do you want to know about it? and they've just disappeared because it was a button to them. There's no commitment, right? Yeah, there's no commitment from them needed at all. And I think that's kind of the downside. So they do have a huge market and they have a lot of eyes on them. Like I said, there might have been a couple opportunities in there that I might have passed on. Maybe it was my ego at the beginning. I had a couple that came through, but some that were like, there was one that wasn't even making the income was like half the rent. And I was like, clearly I can't take that. And then there was a bunch that unfortunately
because you don't want them to move in and then not be able to afford it.
That was my biggest thing. Right? I said to everybody, like, I'll work with you on credit because I understand how life is. Like, I know people who've got bankruptcies and life happens. But can you afford it now? Like, obviously I need to make sure you can do it, but not to mention if we get another lockdown session, like I don't want to see that. Like, and I just,
that's something to think about too.
I'm a very reasonable guy, but at the end of the day, like I still need to pay my mortgage, right? That's the big thing is as a landlord, you have a mortgage and people want to get upset. Like you're making me pay rent or like I lost my job and all this stuff. I still have the debt obligation. Yeah. Like I will start getting calls from my creditors saying, where's the money? That's it. Shit rolls downhill. That's the problem. You're the renter. You're at the bottom of the chain. I got a person I owe a loan to that I need to pay and it goes all the way down. So that's kind of the sad reality of the situation, but you want to make sure you don't have to have that call. You see them. I watch a lot of guys on YouTube where they have like the evictions and they sit down with the people and stuff gets wild. Like I said, just getting some of the people in there was like frustrating. I don't want to have to kick someone out. Yeah. That's not something you want to get involved with. So that's not really the aim of it. It's again, to try to turn it into passive income, make it as easy as possible as you can, because if you're managing it too much and you're really involved every day, then it's no fun either. Like you're not. Yeah, then it's because you're not passive anymore.
You don't have a property manager running.
No, don't have a property manager. Definitely was something I brought up to my partner, but we decided that maybe not. She actually talked me out of it because I was just like, I'm so busy, I don't know if I can do it. But really, it's just once you fill them, if everything's okay with the space and they're not needy, that's also kind of where you like check on the person. It's like, are they going to be needy? And I had one person come through who was like, everything. She was like the noise. She was so worried about the noise, and it was like the AC turned on, and she was like, "Oh, it's kind of loud." And then she was like listening out the window, and she was like listening to the fans. And
that sounds like each
fan. It was well, and for me, as standing there, I was just watching this, and I was like, "This is a nightmare waiting to happen." Even if she says yes, as she was doing it, I was like, I don't want to have a call saying, "Oh, this is loud. You need to come fix this at 2 a.m." I was like, it's not something I want to deal with.
And your area is a really up and coming place too. It's like, it's right by a golf club or a golf course. It's like in a nice community.
It's in Summerlin. Yeah, it's in Summerlin.
It's like got great restaurants. So it's not like, that's something you kind of have to look at too, especially here in Vegas. You want to make sure, I guess like for condos, right? Like you want to make sure they're in a decent area.
Well, anywhere. It doesn't matter where you're buying property. I mean, you want to make sure it's on the up and up and values are going to continue.
Yeah,
so
I guess that makes sense.
It's high. You go into the nicest area you can afford. I think luckily, again, with this sort of, I wouldn't again call it pocket listing, but the person knowing Felicia and the fact that she brought it and said, hey, this is a good price. Mm-hmm. And it is, after our renovations, we could have sold it and made money. That was the point. And because that was just the market moving up. But it's one of those that we're banking on the fact that long-term holding on to it, it's going to have some value down the road. So you obviously have to do that with any investment. Doesn't matter whether it's property, stocks, gold, doesn't matter what you're doing it in. So, I mean, I even do that today with crypto. I just literally, I'm always assessing, and that's really what the channel was about. Did we mention that at the beginning that I have the channel?
No, but we can segue into that.
Well, I was just thinking about like talking, because I realize there's a lot of people that I have in the community on my YouTube channel, which I talk with, that I reference a lot of projects out there and smaller things that people don't.
There's one topic I want to get into, but go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that I think a lot of people out there don't really know, honestly, the fundamentals of investing. Right. And it can get really in depth, but it doesn't have to at the beginning. Like to start, it really is, there's some simple basics. Buy low, sell high would probably be the number one thing. And how do you guarantee you buy high? Well, you don't, but you do your diligence, you do your research, and you try to find a good buy and you try to do a good sell. So it just takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of thought ahead of time. Again, where I go back to the property, it was like picking a good location, making sure the tenant's going to pay, fill the gaps.
Going into your crypto channel, you were talking about this thing called Gala Games, which is basically like a decentralized music service.
No. The Gala Games is actually decentralized gaming service.
Gaming service.
But they have an offshoot that's for music. They're going to become a decentralized music player.
Okay. So So talk about like sort of that space of decentralization. Like what, so for somebody who's like totally like, I don't know what crypto is, like explain it for dummies. Like explain like why you think it's going to, because you have a good take on this, why you think what it is, which is like your simplified version of it, the internet, and then why you think it's going to work. Or why is it going to work?
Because it's the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
You just answered the question.
Yeah.
It's just another layer. Think of it like cake. Think of the internet and information we receive on all the networks, our cell phones, the computers, the Yahoo, the Google.com. They're layered. Okay. At the base level, there's a computer, and then above that, there's like binary code and text, and then there's programming, and then there's like the visual stuff we see. So these are layers, like a cake, right?
Yep.
Crypto is a layer on top.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
so that's my basic version. If you can't understand that, I don't know how to make it any simpler. It's just it's the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It's the next version. It's called Web3 for a reason. And that's one of the other synonymous names for crypto is Web3. It's really just it's a mechanism for transferring information, but it does it in a not necessarily always decentralized manner, but it does it in just a new secure manner. It is really the main thing you got to be looking at. It's security based on it. Decentralization is the key thing you want to get out of it. It doesn't have to be decentralized, though. This is the common misconception. People keep throwing out DeFi and decentralization. They don't really know that there's also CeFi, which is centralized, right? And centralized finance is your normal banks we have now. It's just a point to point. I have Bank of Wells Fargo. I go to Wells Fargo. It's like I'm making an exchange with them. I'm talking to one person when I do it. But a decentralized version of that, or a DeFi version of that, would be I communicate with a group of computers that are all verifying that that information they're giving me is correct, and not one of those computers is a bad actor, is a bad party trying to steal my money. And so there's checks and balances in the decentralized world, whereas in the centralized, it's just one-to-one, and I have to trust that person.
It's a company, basically. It's one company.
Yeah, decentralization comes to trust.
Yep. And so I think that's the thing that's hard for people to understand is the blockchain is what verifies the transaction, right? It's like, Am I off there?
No. Blockchain is how you
So like it's a bunch of like, which to me it's like a ton of computers. I guess it's like when you're in a bank, right? Like if I pay you, there's
it's just imagine one computer. If you go to your bank,
one computer.
It's my browser,
server.
A server, one server. It's not really one server. Obviously, it's a group of servers, but they're controlled by that company. And if that company decides to turn the switch off or change some programming, it all changes. Those zeros on the end of your balance are up to their whim if they want to change them or not. In a decentralized fashion, those servers can be spread across the world by any number of people. You don't know who they are. But the trust, instead of between you and that one bank, comes between the fact that all those computers are checking each other and constantly verifying. That's what the blockchain is. It's a verification process that allows it to check each other, and then you can trust that it's immutable. It cannot change. The answer is going to be correct. Granted, there are hacking and there are certain protocols that have different versions that manipulate it, but really it is about, if you talk about the fundamentals of the decentralized, yes, blockchain is just a group of trust.
How do you find the resources that, obviously you have a crypto channel, so you have to like research all this stuff. Like, how are you finding all this stuff? Are you just at home digging all this information yourself and just like, how do you find that out? How do you know what's real? I guess what's a scam? I guess that's what a lot of people's concerns are, like, how do I know it's legit, right? Like even for me, I'm like, how do I know it's real?
That's a bit of a hard one. And honestly, that's sort of where like I said, I come in and I try to provide some value there, is that I try to do a lot of that research because it can get quite in depth. Yeah. And I really do approach it with the investing mindset first off, because it's like, if I'm going to put my money into this, I don't want to lose it. Yeah. And if anything, I'm not just going to put it there for zero gains. I want to make some money. So there's a twofold to it. But really what I analyze more so is sort of the people and teams and project validity. And again, like I said, if we go back to the layered cake, all these layers on top of it, all these companies we talked about, Google and Yahoo and AOL, which was around, but these are all sort of like centralized versions of companies. Now there's a lot of centralized versions of crypto out there as companies, and you can invest in them too, but there's also decentralized versions. And all you're doing is no different than if you were looking into Google, who is the team behind it? What are their credentials? Gotcha. What are they, you know what I mean? What are they doing in the space?
Researching, like you're basically just Googling the company and just seeing what they're about. Like, you know, Shibu.com, you're like, you'll type them up and then you'll see all the reviews and stuff.
Yes
like,
and no.
like
I mean, there's a few.
There's like forums that people are talking to. Like, this guy's legit.
Well, I look at the social proof. I always look through a lot of like the Twitter and the Reddit. I mean, I use those avenues, which you can't. A lot of this space is played in those sort of more written versions of social media. So Twitter and Reddit, you really can't find a lot of that good information on the visual ones. Like, unfortunately, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, because there's a lot of misinformation, because anyone can grab the camera and just start making a video channel and just start lying about it basically. But when you have to write it down, it usually takes a little bit more effort. And so it's been relegated to the groups of people who are like the crypto, like,
Gurus.
no, you know what I mean? Like the fighters or whatever. There's a word I want to put in there. But anyway, those are the platforms you probably got to look for the social proof, but you try to see what the community and what the people out there are saying about it. And if you see a negative version of what people are generally saying, you can tell right away, like, yo, this is a scam, or this is a problem, or these people don't know anything. And they're out there trying to pull. The thing with people is they're usually trying to pull other people down. I hate to say it, but there's a lot of that. So they're pulling these people
that's
down.
Just the internet.
Yeah. Well, and the trolls, right? So the trolls are trying to find these things. And there's a lot of them I can think of today, but you try to go a little bit further beyond that, because again, like I said, there's use cases for each of these projects. You need to see if that makes any sense. Does the world need this? Like, and that's one of those big things that comes with NFTs, which is a whole other conversation. But it's like, you start to question, like, what do you need this for? And there are versions of what you need a lot of these crypto things for. But
as far as like each company doing their own sort of project, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, really,
because they're different projects, right? If I think the thing I started to understand is like each company is different. Like Ethereum's different from Bitcoin, you know, like Polkadot's different from.
Yeah, and just to square it up, Bitcoin isn't a company. That's the reason why Bitcoin is king, and Bitcoin's the one true, like, it's
currency.
Well, it's the trustless. It's a store of value, and it's a store of value because it's like it's an organization that it's not an organization. It's more of a
system.
It's a system that was made. The switch was turned on and just let run, and no one controls it. Now, you can say some degree that if there was enough, 51% of people who were involved in the project or the computers running it, as it continues to grow, if they can gain 51% control, they could technically change it and move it in a direction. But it is now so decentralized to a point where that would be feasibly, it would be almost impossible. It would require so much effort and energy and money to make that happen, that it's in such a place that you can almost guarantee that it's trusted, that no one individual is going to change it, make anything wrong with it, say all of a sudden you're zero balance, like they're just not going to change the value of your wallet. So Bitcoin is the real decentralization. So when you're talking about like trying to find if there's one project, like which ones you should discern, if you just are looking for like the simple answer, getting into crypto and like, I just want to trust, how do I trust this without anything bad happening? Bitcoin. It doesn't have anyone behind it. It's just a bunch of people who are mining it, which are therefore their incentive is they make money just to keep the program running. And as long as there's all these different people trying to make money from it, they can't interact and break it. So the other programs like Ethereum, a lot of them aim to be decentralized, but a lot of them do have some centralized nature to them. They still have a team.
They're a company.
Well, you can treat them more like a company. Not all of them are fully, but they have to be started by someone, right? Someone has to write the code. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that Satoshi Nakamoto is we don't know who he is, was the creator of Bitcoin. Him with a group of other people when it was first started. It was only a handful of people. They created it. And at that time, it was fallible. Like you could easily break crypto. You could easily test it and manipulate it. But fortunately, there was some faith and trust put in by those people. They let it go. It got to a point where it was just, it's unchangeable now. But the other programs, a lot of them still have so much involvement by the initial developers that are still there, that you really have to be like, okay, again, is this team a good team? Do I believe this person? If this person leaves, is this going to collapse?
Well, why did Ethereum become the second sort of?
It really introduced smart contracts in the first big way. So smart contracts are what cause things to happen automatically on the blockchain. So there isn't, like, Bitcoin itself doesn't do much as far as like just exchange, like it transfers a number from one to another one. That's really all it does. It doesn't do anything extra. But smart contracts, which is the step above inside the crypto world, is what allows them to actually do and have some utility. So you could have it so that a contract could be, oh, you need 2 signers to come in before that money is moved, or that number is moved, right? So if you want to move $100,000 from this person to there, you need 2 people to say yes before it goes over. That's a smart contract. Or say once the whole, like, you think about title insurance on a property, it needs to go through a whole check on the title history. A smart contract in theory could do that. It could run through all the documents, check if it's valid, hold the money aside. And if it's proved that it's good, it then releases the funds instead of a person. Like a person does that now manually. Yeah. So it's like an automatic version. So smart contracts are the fundamentals of the whole crypto space.
That's what I hear. Like that's the future. Basically, it's the smart contracts. So are you going to be able to buy a house with Ethereum?
Well, that's the thing, is that it's not, you can't necessarily ask it like that. And the really hard part with crypto is like people think about all of them as like currencies. Currencies is a bad word for it. It's actually like a misnomer to some degree. The only one that really kind of is like Bitcoin. The rest of them are generally, I mean, there might be some others, but generally it's more of, they call it, a token. It's more like a stock, honestly.
More like stock.
But the interesting part that people have a hard time grasping is that as time and technology evolves, things change. But people don't want to believe they change, but they do change, right? Like there was a time when I remember being
dial-up.
A dial-up, 56K. I remember a landline. I remember using a landline. I remember my mother trying to strangle me with a giant cable as she was like, "Oh my God, will you shut up?" Like as a joke, right? It's a thing. As it changes, you don't realize it until it's happened. And then you're like, all of a sudden, wow, my phone is now completely wireless and I can take it to the top of Mount Everest and it still works.
Sure.
That's a complete divergence from where it was 20 years ago.
So where do you see that?
What I'm getting to is that people don't realize that these stocks or these cryptocurrencies, they're both. They're kind of both. And this is a huge discussion that's going on right now with like the SEC, the government, the powers that be. They don't know what they are. It's because they've changed the game. It acts as a currency because there's value to it, but it doesn't as in sense that it's more like a stock, and you should be treating it like a stock that can go up and down in value. So I wouldn't want to have my income given to me in Microsoft stock, honestly, but I wouldn't mind having it given to me in dollars or whatever. So it's kind of both. So yes, theoretically you could buy it in Ethereum, but you really by the point where mortgages would be available on the blockchain as readily, as easy as they are now, you wouldn't be using Ethereum as currency anymore. So a lot of these underlying currencies or tokens that we're seeing, the big ones, they're going to become lower down the layer chain. They're going to be lower down, and then there will be another layer on top of it. The layers that are on the internet were really thick and slow to make. But as technology goes, so does the exponential curve of growth. Those layers become thinner and happen faster. So there's delay, so like GameFi. So the fact that there's a whole new world of video games being made on the blockchain. So Ethereum's there, and then you used Ethereum's code to write a video game. So now we've already got something that's using Ethereum without any human interaction. It's a code that writes on top of it, and now you've got a video game. That's what the human wants, is the end user product. So you really shouldn't be thinking about a lot of these things as like, when will I be spending my Ethereum to buy a house? You can use it as sell those Ethereum asset to turn it into the money that is wanted at the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You know, you shouldn't really be thinking about it like, I'm going to be spending Ethereum. When will that happen?
So
it's already
do you think it'll
happening.
just stay that way, or it'll just, what do you think the next thing is, basically, is what I'm trying to ask.
I mean, that's really hard. It's just moving at a rate that even I am having you know what I mean? It's like, no matter what, the human indulgence of this is having a hard time just keeping up with it because it moves so fast, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to pick where it's going to actually be, but adoption is happening. It's going to happen. And here's the thing:
like
is no
AI.
matter. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be involved in it
for sure.
Obviously, I mean, like I said, it's part of the internet. Do you like browsing the internet? Do you enjoy receiving videos and emails and all that? Well, then it's not going. If you don't think that's going away, then you don't think crypto's going away.
Yeah.
Because they're one and the same, and that's why I love all these discussions about like, is the government going to shut down crypto? Are they shutting down the internet anytime soon?
I'm curious to how it's going to marry into like the real estate world. That's where I'm curious, right? Like, because right now it's gone into the art world with the NFTs, and it's like the photographers are jumping onto the NFTs as well, and music's next, right? And so like every industry is going to take their little step in. Like sports has done it, you know, like you can buy like
NFTs come involved.
A video game, an NFT of a GIF of like a LeBron James making a layup.
Yeah.
Or
the problem people have is that they think all the GIFs or all the pictures and all that. That's what an NFT is. No, an NFT just isn't the currency version, the token version, and it's non-fungible because there's no like kind. So like when you buy Ethereum, there's another Ethereum over that you can exchange for exact value.
What does fungible mean?
Well, that's exactly what it means. It can be exchanged for like kind. It can be exchanged. So if I have $1, it's fungible because I can get another $1 for $1. I can exchange it for exact value. Non-fungible is something that's unique. So Robert Condell is unique. You can't get another Robert Condell for it. And that's kind of a bad example of it. But there's certain commodities and things you can't like.
But that's the thing. That's like what confuses everybody with the NFTs. It's like it's just a JPEG, right?
right now. But, okay, I'll give you another example of NFTs. And I've tried to use this explanation. I had a few pushbacks because they still couldn't understand it. So I'm gonna try again. What would be an NFT would be your license. So Stuart's license. No, who would want Stuart unless you're going to use it for purpose, but who wants Stuart's license? Like, it's my identity. It's what's used to get me into a bar. It's what's used to prove who I am. It has value perhaps, but there isn't necessarily like another Stuart license. I couldn't trade it for your license and it have the same value necessarily, right? It's like, it's just because it's an individual thing. So identification will be an NFT. A contract that would say perhaps that Stuart owns this property is a contract that would be an NFT. So it's not exchangeable for an exact other contract that would be the same sort of concept, right? So again, it's anything that's going to be an identification of a unique ownership in the digital space. So it's just a representation of real things, right? Yeah. So you can, again, if you bought a couch in real life, but you wanted to buy it through crypto digital world, you could buy the NFT and it says he owns that couch. Right? You don't have to go to that extent, but you can. So it's kind of like marrying the digital and the physical world.
Like the title, basically, of a house.
Exactly. Right. Just like the title of a house would be an NFT.
Sense.
It's an NFT because there's not another one. There's not 1,000 of them out there circulating where people are exchanging all these titles to houses that are exactly for your house. It's just, there's the one of them, sort of. It's that digital ownership. So
why do you think they're going up so high, though?
Because it's new, it's shiny. That's what I mean. That's why I say, I mean,
you see like a picture of a rock go for $1 million.
Yeah, but I mean,
how is that like? Doesn't that blow your mind?
No, it doesn't. Because I think about art. Period. Right. I mean, we both had an artist stint in our lives, and understanding where comes the time and the place for art is subjective, right? And so you look at, I remember one time we went to a museum, I can't remember which one it was.
We were in New York and I was looking at this rope on the ground and I was so mad.
Granted, no, it was big rope. It was like shipping rope and it was like, it had to have been like 2-3 inches thick, but it was spooled up in a perfect spool. So it almost made a wall. It was like a well on the ground and it was painted white. And we walked in the room and Rob was looking at it. He was so pissed.
Yeah, it was the Museum of Modern Art or Contemporary Art in New York. And I went there and I just see this rope on the ground and I was so mad that was considered art. I don't know why. It just upset me.
Yeah.
Until this day, I'm pissed about it.
Right. And but you start to once you look at that, you start to question. It really comes into like this huge existential debate about what is art and what's to the beholder and what does it mean? Does it go further into the community of people behind it? Who is representing it? What does it all mean? It's like,
another guy that pisses me off in the art world is like, he just makes a black frame. Like he has a canvas and he just paints it black. And then there's like a dot that's blue in the middle. Yeah. And that's his art.
Or let's talk about the banana that was taped to the wall. Yeah, you remember that little thing? It was like, and it sold for $10,000 or something stupid, a banana duct taped to a wall and someone bought it. You know what? Sometimes, and the crazy thing with art is that sometimes it's just because of the audacity that people
the hype behind it for sure. Yeah.
What the hell is this?
That's the thing with the NFTs. I think too, it's like, there's the hype around it. And then there's the actual thing that's going to come out of it, right? Like there was the hype of the internet, like the Netscapes and all that stuff, and the AOLs. But there's always the hype behind the product.
Yeah, you know? Of course, and that's why you need to be careful.
Value.
You need to be careful because again, people like to tie the comparison of the .com bubble with crypto. I think more you could probably look at like the NFTs as being a bubble because crypto itself isn't really going to go anywhere. Just like the internet did. And I guess you could see a bubble, like it's like it could pop, but it'll stay there. But NFTs are definitely in a hypermania stage. People they're new to it and they're seeing money and they're seeing it and they're going crazy for it. It's like tulips. If there's an old thing back in the day, you were a tulip mania in the Dutch.
Yeah, or like when those Furbies got all thing. And
it was like $1,000 for a Furby.
People bought those Furbies or whatever.
It's the same sort of thing. It's like, I've got to have it, and every kid wants it, and everybody wants it, or everybody who wants to make money wants these NFTs. And so that's where we're at now. But the fundamentals of what an NFT is, there is value there. And I think there will be some. The ones that are going to have the highest value in the NFT space and the crazy space, like from an art standpoint, again, are going to be the ones that adhere to the firsts rule or that have a massive artist behind them. So if there's an artist who's already doing physical real world work, he's going to do fine in the NFT space because people are going to want his digital version because he's already famous. And the other ones are the ones that are going to do the firsts of something. So the first would be the first sets of NFTs that were done in the way you think of it, like CryptoPunks or Bored Ape Yacht Club. Some of these are early projects that were done by decent teams that had already made other crypto-based projects out there. They came out with the NFT. It's the first. Yeah. That's the main reason why. So if you did buy it, I would say that there would be some validity to your value down the future. If you bought it for $300,000 today, 10 years from now, it's probably going to go up because it really will be fundamentally one of the first things that did it. You know what I mean? It'll be like the first person to do pop art or the first person to do like, I can't even think of the art styles, but you know what I mean? Street art. It would be like a Banksy thing in the future because it'll be the first. But that doesn't mean that all the other nonsense that's out there should really be treated with that same meaning. So you should be cautious for sure. I do still try to explain to people there is a use case for NFTs in the real world. Like there will be. Like the underlying feature of it, the digital ownership part of it is really what's going to end up being
like
useful.
the minting part, right? Like the stamp. It's basically like a little watermark stamp. They do that now with audio and files and stuff.
Well, and that I was trying to explain to someone the other day too.
There's encryption.
A music track.
There's a lot of encryption and stuff and all that stuff.
No, but it's not even, you don't even have to think about it. Like a music track is an NFT.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so think of it, it's digital ownership of an asset that's in the digital world. So if I'm listening to Snoop Dogg's latest track, that's an NFT that I'm listening to. And whoever owns it, you can have ownership of it, but you could have multiple versions of the song and have different owners, but it's an NFT.
Yeah,
so that's really where, again, the fundamentals of being used. Do you think people will continue listening to music? If we've already decided, let's decide that crypto is going to be around because it's the internet and it's going to continue to evolve. It's going to get, we're going to have the internet for a while, I think. Then do you think people will continue watching movies and listen to music on the internet? Yes, they're going to be using NFTs.
Yeah.
So then
it's gonna be interesting.
You should be bullish on all those things, but I wouldn't necessarily go out there and buy a picture of a rock, to be honest.
Let's go back into like before we sort of end this. But yeah, man. So Stu, thanks, dude. Thanks for coming on. That's the end of the show because I don't know how to end this.
Jesus Christ.
Where can they find you, bro? I don't know how to end these things, dude. This is how we're ending it.
Yeah.
The end.
The end. Uncut. Finn. Well, thanks for having me on, Rob.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation.
Where can they find you, dude?
You don't find me. I find you, first of all. Financed Opinion on YouTube is the only real presence I have right now. That's where all the chips are because I'm helping people and I enjoy talking about crypto, obviously. But it's not for everybody. I really would say that it's definitely not for everybody. But do your own research. And if you're at all interested in crypto and investing, definitely put some time into it. Yeah. And if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here to talk. I love talking about it. So, you can find me YouTube. It's the only spot.
That's it.
That's it.